Hi, my name is Scott from the Economics Tutoring Center, and today I'm going to be talking about supply and demand in equilibrium. So please make sure to check my notation and language with your professor because it may vary. So to start out, we have two equations. We have demand and supply, and as usual, these are equations that relate price and quantity. And we want to solve for three things. First, we want the equilibrium quantity, we want the equilibrium price, and then we want to graph both functions and see if we can sort of plot where the equilibrium is. So we'll start with the equilibrium quantity. What we know about equilibrium is that the prices have to be equal in equilibrium. So the price on the supply curve and the price on the demand curve. So what we can do is we can set these two equations equal to each other. So let's see, 800 minus 5q, and that equals 100 plus 2q. And I just write these as q's and get rid of the subscript letters because we also know in equilibrium that the quantities have to be the same. So we can just treat it as one quantity. So now what we want to do is you can combine like terms here. So if we add 5q to both sides, we have 800, and that's equal to 100 plus 7q. So we just added the 5q over. And we can subtract the 100 over. So 700 equals 7q. Divide by 7, and our equilibrium quantity, I'll call it Q star, is 100. So then from there, we want to solve for equilibrium price. And here we have two equations that give us price as a function of quantity. So what you can do, you plug this equilibrium quantity into either equation. And by the way we solved for equilibrium quantity, you'll get the same price from both equations. So I'll just pick the demand equation. So we have the equilibrium price, so I'm going to erase some of this stuff. So from the demand equation, we get that the equilibrium price is equal to 800 minus 5 times the equilibrium quantity. We know the equilibrium quantity is 100. So P star is 800 minus 5 times 100, which is 500. And P star is then 300. So those are our equilibrium values for price and quantity. And now you could just plot that on the graph, but it'd just be a point. So it's helpful if we draw out the supply and demand graphs first. So basically these are equations that are in slope-intercept form, like from algebra. So I think probably the easiest way to graph the demand is you want to find out the y-intercept, you could say, where the line intersects the price axis, and also the quantity intercept. So how do you do that? Well, you take the demand equation and you say, okay, if we want to know where it intersects the price axis, we set quantity equal to 0, because quantity is 0 when we're on this axis. So if quantity is 0, then we have price equals, so we have price equals 800 minus 5 times 0, and this is just 0, so the demand curve intersects the price axis at 800. Then to see where, so I'm going to erase the equilibrium here. Actually, I'll leave the equilibrium. To see where the demand curve intersects the quantity axis, we set price equal to 0, because price is 0 along this axis. So 0 equals 800 minus 5 times quantity demanded. You add 5 quantity demanded to both sides, and you get 5Q equals 800. Divide by 5, and you get that QD is 160. So it intersects the quantity axis at 160. Then we know it has a constant slope, so it's just a straight line like this, and that's our demand curve. So then we have supply, and again, we can see where it intersects the price axis by setting quantity equal to 0. So let's just say, from the supply equation, price equals 100 plus 2 times 0. We plug in 0 for quantity, and this goes to 0, so the supply curve intersects the price axis at a price of 100. Then it has a positive slope, so it won't come down and meet the quantity axis. So from here we just have to kind of draw the slope. So we know it's a slope of 2, so just like from algebra, kind of up 2 over 1, it might look something like this. So that's how you graph supply and demand. And then we solved our equilibrium before. This equilibrium quantity was 100 and the price is 300. So there's quantity and price in equilibrium. So that's how, given the equations for supply and demand, you solve for equilibrium and then graph the curves. So I hope that helped.